Hello everyone. I'm going to be doing a short video here on installing a new ignition key cylinder on a 99 Diablo Roadster. And I'm going to kind of do it in reverse order because I think it's best to see what kind of parts we're dealing with before actually trying to disassemble everything. It just makes everything how would you say, a lot more easier to understand, especially if you're trying to do it the first time. It's kind of a pain, but anyhow, what you're looking at here is the entire column. I would say it's made of plastic, I guess, column wrap that goes around the entire steering column. And what you see there in that hole is where the key would go into to start the cylinder, or the ignition key. Over here you can see this is the ignition I pulled out, the ignition cylinder key that I pulled out. And basically the reason why I had to do that is the key was stuck in the ignition cylinder. I did eventually just take a wrench or pair of pliers and just rip the piss out of the key out of there, because I had another set of cylinder keys and another set of keys over there. And the prior owner was kind enough to give me a lot of parts that he was going to get around to fixing. So it really saved me quite a bit of money. This is the older cylinder, like what I said, but what he ended up doing was the key could actually go into auxiliary mode, but not it couldn't be turned all the way. So the tumblers inside this cylinder are all janked up. So, but he still wanted to drive the car, obviously, and yeah, so would I. So what he ended up doing was he took the electrical wires coming out of the cylinder, and you can see it down in here, and he tapped into the starter wires here. So that way, when you turn the key into the auxiliary position, he also, at the bottom of the key, he put a little switch on there, toggle button, where you push down, and what that would do is actually start the vehicle while the key is in auxiliary mode. So that was pretty cool to devise that method. And heck, you know, you'd be able to drive around and all that kind of stuff. And he had every intention to fix it himself and all that kind of stuff, but one thing led to another. And so anyways, I'm now with the vehicle. So let's get back to this original thing, because that's the first thing you're going to do is remove this shroud that goes around the steering column. It's two pieces. Up on the top you can see this is how it would look to you if you were in the vehicle, with the steering wheel here, and up on the top there's the VIN number of the vehicle right here. If you ever need a replacement of this, you can actually order them, and you would provide the VIN number of your vehicle, and they will stamp it in on the top part here, so as if it came from the factory. Well, it did come from the factory, so they would have those molds to be able to make these. So this actually comes apart in two. These are different than the ones made for prior to 99. Maybe 98 had them, but I think 99 was the first year where Lamborghini actually did a full redesign on the aesthetic things involved with the vehicle. Everything from the interior dash being more fluid from left to right, and a better console. Basically, they did a lot of aesthetic things, not necessarily performance things, with the vehicle, or at least as far as I could tell. So yeah, so this thing opens up, and the only thing that keeps this on the steering column are basically going to be, I've counted 6 screws. And over here, I keep them in bags, so when I disassemble, I have everything at my disposal. We have four normal screws here. They're Phillips heads. I don't know why Lamborghini toggled between Phillips and hex screws. It's just makes it convoluted in terms of always grabbing the right thing. So now, in terms of screws, I'm going to flip these parts over. If you look at it, the top part has no screw holes anywhere on there, which is good, because then that means disassembly is all going to be done from the bottom side. So we've got 4 holes here, which would be these 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then from everything I can tell, there were 2 screws, one here, which are these ones. And in order, so we do have 2 small screw holes here and right there. Those would be these long Phillips screws. But keep in mind, you could take a normal screwdriver and do these top screws, these 4 ones, pretty easy. But to do these small ones up front, you're going to need something like this, a real small one. They're primarily used like if you use to open up electronic devices like a PC or computer or whatever. It's got the really fine small shaft and a little Phillips, so those would go in there. There was one caveat. Once I got all those 6 screws all taken out, the plastic bottom part would not come out, and I couldn't figure out. The top wouldn't come out unless the bottom was out. And so what eventually happened was I kept on looking for screws and all that stuff. Oh, there is one more on the side here, and that one goes in, and that one I got the screw in the garage. So, but there was one last one that was hidden that I kind of should have figured out. But if you look, there's a hole right here. And then because you can't see nothing, you're all in the dark, I took this screw head and I put it in there and I twizzled it around, and it wasn't bottoming out or nothing. So I figured, oh, it's just a dummy hole. Don't understand what that one's about. Well, it turns out that one actually goes way deeper. So if I flip it over, you can see how much way deeper. So this screw here, if I'm coming up from the underside, would have only come up about halfway through. It actually goes all the way up to the top. And that top one is another little screw like one of these, and it actually, if you flip this thing over, it actually connects into this piece right there. And so why would they ever do that? You know, if you think about it, it's like that. They just have that one, but I guess it's one of the main ones that holds this piece in. So it is what it is, but it's not a difficult task. You know, we've got 4, 5, 6, 7 screws, and they're all readily accessible, and you should be able to get at it. The thing that is kind of was painful was actually the cylinder lock, getting this thing out. And I'll go and talk about that cylinder lock. In fact, I'll do it right now. So ultimately, this is what I'm going to be removing, is the cylinder lock. It comes apart right here, right in the middle with these 2 bolts here, and there's your cylinder lock. This is the bad unit that I have. But if you take these out, you'll notice something odd about them. You're going to be wrenching them in with your socket, etc., and then at the very end you really torque it down, and this entire head will snap off. And at first I thought, man, that's crazy. Why would you do that? You know, well, the idea here is this cylinder lock key is not going to be coming out of your vehicle ever. It shouldn't, you know. Well, in my case it does because the key broke, but it's a safety precaution. So what they wanted to do was this to be really cinched up, and that way this head snaps off, and that way if someone tries to hotwire your vehicle, etc., it's going to be a pain in the ass because they won't have a tool to be able to take these 2 bolts out. Okay, but I mean, there's a lot easier ways, i.e. hotwiring it from the backside if you know what you're doing. But still, even that method, you're going to have the auxiliary, you know, that kind of stuff. You have to have them wires, that kind of stuff. But what made it my job real painful was this set that was in there. I'll show you the bolts that were here. So this is the one that was in this one, and if you look, it did have the head of it snapped off, which is the way it's supposed to be. But then now what you have to do is you have to buy a tap set or a drill bits that can go counterclockwise. So that way you would pre-drill this right at the head of it, and then you would back the bolt out. Well, the bottom one came out just as great, because what I ended up doing is I had a center punch, and you center punch at the middle of this, and then you can put your drill bit in there and then drill it out and then back it out. And that worked great. But my problem is I made a mistake on the top one where when I did my center punch, I did not hit it directly in the middle of the bolt head. So dumb me, being impatient, I kept drilling and tried to pre-drill it out. And what ended up happening is that drill head, the head was cockeyed. And so what ended up happening is I couldn't back the bolt out. And because when I couldn't back the bolt out, I started getting bigger drill bits and just went to town on it and kept drilling and drilling. And then finally what I ended up saying is, hey, I'm going to grab a big drill and come in from the backside and drill it all the way out, because this effectively is junk. I'm going to keep this piece because there's value in there. I'm sure if you go online, it's at minimum a $500 part for that, and it works fine, you know. So what I ended up doing is I put the new unit in, and I wired it up, and I'll go in the vehicle and show you guys that. But instead of using these shear off bolts, I ended up just going down to the hardware store. This time it was at, I think it was Home Depot. And I got circular bolts that fit perfectly down into the recesses of these holes. And you'll see it's a perfect match and everything. And it's driven by a big hex wrench or hex bit. And so it's a lot cleaner, and I'm not worried about someone stealing my vehicle or whatever. I mean, if they're in the vehicle, I'd rather have them just steal the vehicle instead of damage the entire inside and then go on their joyride, and then, you know, the car gets recovered and everything is busted up inside anyways. But make a long story short, this is out, and I've got this out, and I'll go show you the how I installed the cylinder key lock, and then I'll be putting this back on. But other than that, everything seems to work really good. Hope you enjoy this. Thanks. I forgot to mention, but when you purchase one of these cylinder keys, they typically come with a set of 3 keys, which they do. They're right here. And what's also included are the cylinder keys for each of the doors. So the 3 sets of keys will start the ignition and open up the 3 sets of doors here. So, but I don't want to get to the door portion until later this summer. And so basically what I've got is the old key, which will open the doors with the old cylinders. And then I've got the 3 new keys, which will start the vehicle. This whole set with the keys, cylinder lock, and the tumblers, all that, like I said, are expensive. You could go online and buy them new. I wouldn't be buying them from used. But anyhow, thanks. Just a quick follow-up. In my other video, I talked about and showed how to align these doors, and about how the switch for various things like the security, and then lowering the window down and that kind of stuff, how those switches get worn out if the door is misaligned. Anyhow, I aligned the door. The new switches have yet to get here. However, you can see if I open up this door, you can see the lights activate and everything. So I can tell that the switches do work. So if I push down on this door, close it, the lights go out. So yay, we got the bonus. So we're gonna do a little bit of reconnaissance underneath the steering wheel. You can see where I'm at, where I'm positioned. So if we look underneath, if you recall the 4 bolts I was telling you, or the 4 screws I was telling you, is there's 1, 2, we have these clips on, so make sure they're centered, so then that way when we put the under casing on, it goes straight in. And then these are this other ones. So there's basically 4 of them. And then the top unit snaps down over it. And then when that top unit it comes down, there's going to be the 2 small
screws way up in the throat of it that come in, and that goes from the bottom case to the top case. It doesn't really attach to the steering column at all. So I'm going to go ahead and snap things in and get the bottom part in first, and then the top part, and see where we go from there.
So hopefully you can see this. This is the cylinder lock key on the left side of the steering wheel. You can see these two bolts that I used. This one and this one right here. They're circular heads and they're hex. So I don't know if we can get a good sharp picture of that or video of it. And basically, it looks like those were almost built for it, because the heads are perfectly round. They fit in to exactly where they're supposed to go, and they can be tightened down super tight. Okay, so this will give you guys a better picture of what's going on here. So basically, to get this bottom piece in, I haven't screwed it in, but I put it in there. What you got to do is you got to clear this bottom part, this lever here. Let me see if I get this light out of the way. Yeah, that lever there. So when you put this piece in first, have the lever being pulled towards you, and then once you wiggle, you'll want to tilt this whole plastic thing sideways so that this arm comes in through this hole first, and then once you've got it in, push it back so that way this piece can get pulled up and be set right where the key is. So now that I've got this in place, all you got to do is put the 4 primary bolts or screws in underneath, and that's simple enough. And then once you've got those in, I would put them in not so tight, and then even before you do that, get this top half put on there, and that's what I'll do right now. Well guys, finally have the steering column back in. I put tape down here to stop this thing from scratching every time I pulled that lever. Put a little piece of tape here to close the gap between the top and the bottom. Same on this side. You can tell that it doesn't seem like it's really closing in or snapping in snug and tight. Not too sure where that's coming from. But yeah, it's in there. So I think the only thing to do is to turn the key and see if it starts. No, don't worry, I already tried it out because you don't want to close up everything without making sure your electricals are all fine. So here, I'll start it up for you. Okay, we're going to put the key in the ignition, put the auxiliary mode. Let it start. We have it in neutral. Oil pressure is up. I got no accelerator. My pedal's off the accelerator. The RPMs will eventually get down to about 1,000, and then once it gets down to 1,000, it's going to how to say, adjust itself so that way it settles in at about 1,100 RPMs. I still haven't done anything with the pedal. Down to about 1,800 RPM. Oil pressure's up, but you can see it's going to start slowly coming down. RPMs are down to about 1,500. So you can tell the engine is actively trying to find a sweet spot. Oh, one thing I wanted to show you, the windows. Well, they worked before.
door. So one of the switches may control the window. So just going to have to figure that one out. RPMs are still at about 1500. Oil pressure's at about 9 bars. So now you can tell the engine's starting to do its thing of settling down, of increasing, decreasing, increasing, decreasing. But eventually it's going to, in a, probably, I'm guessing 2 minutes, it's going to be down to about 1100 RPMs. Previous owner put in a tire pressure monitor, so you can read out what the bars are, etc. Once I get my new set of tires and get the rim straightened out, I'm going to start working on the interior parts. He had a nice amplifier put in. It was an Audison, expensive amplifier. You can see the up and downs here on the stiffness of the shocks. Flashing error. These are a known error in the shocks. There is a way to reset it. I haven't tried to do that yet. More likely because of the age of the car and stuff happened. Okay, now the engine's really starting to calm down a bit. We're down to about 1300 RPMs. I've yet to touch the accelerator. The bars are at 9. Eventually that's going to really come down to, I'm guessing, about 4 bars or so. You can see the RPMs, it's kind of bouncing. Once again, it's the feedback mechanism in the engine that's trying to find a proper RPM. Right now I can hear the fans kick on in the engine. I think that could be the radiators for the oil. Almost getting down to 1200 RPMs. Bars are now under 9. It's getting to almost 8 bars. Once these RPMs get to about 1100, and right now you can hear the tone of the engine has changed. And with that, you can see that the oil pressure is now finally starting to settle, come down. It's at about 8 bars, and now it's into the high 7s. We are almost at that magical 1100 mark where it should be, and you can see oil pressure is down considerably. Now it's in the upper 6s, mid 6s. the high 5s for the bars, and we are right on the money on the 1100. This is where the engine, I think, gets a little more active now. Of the, okay, it will really settle down the sound of the engine. See, the bars are at in the high 4s now, and now the engine's going to probably kick up a bit more to get it to the 1100. There we go. Bars are at mid 4. There we go. Now it's starting to bounce between 1,000 and 1,100 RPM, which is good. I think once this gets to about 4 bars, the engine will have really calmed down and is, how would you say, waiting to be driven. Oil pressures come down quite a bit, almost at 4 bars. I think 3.9 is the last time I saw it at, last time I did this, and we're at about 3.9. So I think this is as good as it's going to get. The engine, if I left it running a little bit longer, it'll get a lot more quieter. I think the engine was tuned really good. Okay, I think that's about it. Hope you learned something. Don't forget to like yourself. Have a good day.